So recording in progress. There we go. So in order to complete what we did yesterday, you should have something like this. And I'm just going to go through it sort of a little bit at a time, one table at a time at least, so you can see what I mean. Do I need to make this larger? I don't know. Is that okay? I think it's okay. So the first thing here is I've got a drop table command. With the drop table command, and I put a if exists condition with it. So that will mean that we won't get an error thrown if the table doesn't exist. Because if we didn't put the if exists in there and there was no table, it would throw an error at that point. And so if the table exists, I'm going to drop it. Then I'm going to go and create it. Create table. And the only trouble that we had yesterday with some of these is putting the brackets in the right place. What we see is we've got a create table, the name of the table. We open a bracket and we close that bracket at the end with a semicolon. And then we have each individual field, one field at a time. I put each field on a different row. You don't need to do that, but it makes it easier to read it. With each field, we specify the type of the data. Here we've got some variable characters and some characters. The difference between varchar and char. Char has a fixed length stored in the memory for that character, regardless of how many characters or how much data is put in there. Varchar tailors the length of the memory that's assigned to the character or to the field by how much, by the size of the actual value that's stored in there. So if you had a varchar field and you had the name Smith in there, it only takes 5 characters, and you've got a varchar of 50 characters, it'll only store enough space in the memory for the 5 characters. But it's got enough there if you need, you can have something that takes up 50 characters. So varchar is really good for, names and addresses and things like that, I suppose, especially for addresses. Now, why would that be important? That would be important in a database where you have millions of records. And you do have databases that have millions of records. The Qatar government stores information on every person who is a legal resident or citizen of Qatar. And we have our QID numbers, and that's tied to a database. So sure, it's going to be a relational database, something like this. They wouldn't want to be storing sort of lots of empty fields, taking up lots of space on their computers. Now, that's bad for the computer storage, but you might say, oh yeah, the storage is cheap. But it's also bad for computer processing. All right, so there's a lot of extra sort of space in the memory going to be required when you process those records if you're holding, if you're using char when you could have been using for short names. All right, so anyways, there is a reason for using varchar. Now, when the SQL databases were first invented back in the 1980s, it was even more important then, right? Because computers' memory was a lot more expensive than it is now. But even still, even now, it does become, we have such huge databases that it can become important. All right, so the command there was create table, and that's what we should have been able to do yesterday. Create the table, we open the bracket, we put down each individual field in the table, and then we close the bracket, and then we have every SQL command ends in a semicolon. Now, populating a table, now there's a couple of ways that I saw this done. Some students have actually handed in the work and I marked it and I saw it. And, when we do the insert into, you can do it record by record, but that's kind of slow and I think inconvenient and inefficient. So why do that? Why don't we just have a single insert command and we insert all the values in the same command? Well, if you're going to do that, what you're going to do is you insert, you say the name of the table that you're going to insert the data into, then you have your list of fields into which data is going to be inserted, all separated by commas. Then you have a value statement. Now, with the value statement, each one of these things that has a bracket around it can be a single field, a single record. And those values are all have the fields must be in the same order in the values as they are in the insert first part of the statement. And so 20 corresponds to the rep number, Kaiser corresponds to the last name, etc. But we can repeat that, and we can do it up to 1,000 times with an insert command. If we wanted to do it more than 1,000 times, we'd have to do a special insert command, which is called a bulk insert command. But we just do that, bulk insert. And so you can insert like millions of records. You don't have to do millions of different insert commands. All you have to do is put the records after one after another. And how these values records work is, as you can see, after the values, we just put a bracket, close the bracket with a comma. At the end, we got a semicolon. All right, and so the rest is just repeating for all the other tables. So we did that for the sales rep table. Then there's the customer table, same idea. Drop the table first if it exists, create, all the fields are there. Notice we've got a primary key. Each of these tables has a primary key. We usually list that field first. Primary key, you may remember from yesterday's lesson, the idea of the primary key is that it uniquely identifies each individual record. And so there's that. And again, we're using the much easier way of inserting the values with a single insert command. Put the values, just separate those by commas, and that gets the whole thing done. So that's our entire database. So if you've got something like that, you can just do a select all, I suppose, and do a copy. Then you could rev up your SQL Lite that you've got online somewhere. So here's my SQL Lite. I've actually already done this, but you'll see there if I delete all that, and I just well, let's can I turn this off? Well, yeah, okay, I could drop all those tables. No, it will drop. You'll see. We can just test it by pasting it in there. We see we've got 127 lines of code there. It's all going to work in a nice little sort of script, and we run that, and no error, and then all of our tables are there. So if we get our editing done right, we can have a table, sorry, a file, and we've saved it as an SQL file, and it has all. I'm going to open it in brackets now, and there it is. It just has all of the SQL commands that are necessary to create our database. So then I could save this, right? And then every time I want to start the database up, I just run it, and all those things are there. So that's what I've done. I would recommend you do something like that. You probably should have a file like that. In a little while, maybe I'll give you that a little bit more specifically. Now let's go and look at the actual work that we're supposed to do today. What we're supposed to do, it says, and you can see this in your notes, but okay, use SQL complete. All right, we got some questions we got to answer. We got 17. All right, so this is using the SQL select statements. The select statement, what it does is it returns from the database the values that you search with some filtering in it so that you get the one that you want. All right, so for example, the first one says list the part number, description, and the price of all the parts. So it's all the parts. The only thing that we're going to do is we're going to narrow down maybe some of the fields. So whenever we have a query like this in SQL, we call these SQL queries. Whenever we have a query like this, first thing we have to do is we have to look at the data that needs to be presented, and we have to, in our mind, know about the database and say, okay, well, where would I get that data? Where would I get the part number, the description, and the price from all the parts? Well, the clue is probably in the name parts. It's probably something to do with the part table. So if we look at the part table, we can see that what we've got in the part table is we have a part num. Okay, that's good. They want that. We've got a description. They want that, and we got a price. We got some other stuff, but it didn't ask us for the other stuff. It only asked us for the part number, the description, and the price. So you can see we got part number, description, and price. The other stuff we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our SQL Lite. We don't need to recreate the tables here, so I need to get rid of this out of the working desk of the SQL. We can see our tables are there. We want to get just those parts. So it was list. Sorry, not. Why am I saying this? Select, and then the things that we want. Part number. There's part number. What was the other thing? Description. Now make sure we get the right one. This is from the departs table, description and price from the, okay, so the way that an SQL command works is we select and we say the data that we want. We got that from the list. Then we have to say from what table or tables, because it's possible that there could be more than one table that we have to get the data from, which makes it a little bit more complicated command. But we're not doing that this time. This time we only have one table. So we just have to say from what the table it is, and it's the part table. And that's all we have to do. There's no conditions on it. If we had, you'll see in some of the later commands, we might have some conditions put on it. And this one we don't. And what we get is we get the part numbers, the description, and the price for all of the things in the parts table. So that's working nicely. Thank you very much. Let's go now and look at the next one. All the rows and, oh, what should I do? What should I do with this? Because you have to hand in this work, right? What should I do with this? Well, how you could hand in the work is you could do a snip of this, which would show the command and the result. And you could say, okay, there's my question one, command and result. Why don't we, if I do a snip of it, no, I'll be all right. The other thing that you could do is you could copy the command, Control C, see the command is working, copy the command. Maybe you make for yourself, oh, okay, so I'll make myself a new thing here, and I'll say this is, so because I'm going to save it as a SQL thing, I'll say this is lab 2 SQL, and so that's a comment, and then I'll just put in here, well, this is question 2, question 1, and then put in the code and save this as when I save as, I'm going to make sure that I choose that it's going to be a SQL structured query language. Where are you? There you go. Structured query language, and give it its name. Lab 2. Lab 2 SQL. Yeah. You can be as specific as you like. You can put your name in there or whatever. And so now we have our code. I suppose, as I was saying, the other thing that you could do is you could just take your snip and say, you know, I will present this as proof that what I did worked. Come back, snip. And so there's my snip. There's the command, and there's the thing. I can even highlight the command if you want. There's the command. Well, you don't need to highlight it for me. I can see the command. But then just take that and put it in a Word document. All right. We got a Word document going here. So you can say a new document. Say lab 2 answers. And here we go, question 1. There it is. And then we're ready to go ahead with question 2. Do that. So you get the idea. You can save something like that, and if you uploaded that, that would be just fine. I would be kind of happy with that, I think. Yes, go ahead.
Can you just repeat how to do that?
How to do what?
How to take the picture from there?
So that's using the snip to lab 2. How you take the pictures? Yeah. All right. So if you haven't used snip before, you can search for it. It comes with your operating system. So if you just search for snip, it's an app which is built into the Windows that's on your computer. So you just click on the app. You'll find an icon for the app running somewhere. Find that icon, and then you need to choose a new. And when you choose new, the screen goes a little bit foggy. that means that you're ready to take a snip and you get a crosshair like this. You use the crosshair to draw a box, and that's your snip. Then you have some tools up in the top here, which allows you to sort of do things with the, because this is just an image now. The tool I like is a highlighter. You can highlight parts of it. You know, this is important or whatever. And then you can take, now this is sitting in the snip is now sitting in the short-term memory, the clipboard. And so if you have any other Word document, any other Microsoft document open like Word, you can paste just with a Control V, you can paste that snip into it. Or you could actually take the image and you could save it and save it as a JPEG file or whatever. And, you know, you can do with it what you want. All right, so there, very fast thing on that. All right, that, I hope that was okay. Did that help you?
Sir,
Yes.
when I copy the data from Visual Studio Code and paste it to SQL, it said
SQL like?
this file is it said this file is create, make another file. What
Yeah,
I do then?
So if you look at my code, what I did in my code here, is this my code? No. If you look at my code, before I create the table, I run a command like this, which is drop table if exist. And so I don't have, so that yeah, otherwise I'll get an error. If I try and create that table and it's already existing, you can't create a table type twice, right? If you want to create it again, you have to erase it, delete it first. And so that's why I'm doing all the drop table commands. You'll see in front of or above every one of my create table commands, I'm doing a drop table if exists. Now I do the if exists because if the table doesn't exist and I tried to drop it, I would get an error. If the table does exist and I didn't drop it, I would get an error. So to make sure I don't get either of those two errors, I do a drop table if exists and then the name of the table, then I can go ahead and create the table. Now, is that the type of thing you're going to do all the time when you start working as a database engineer? Well, no, because you don't want to, you wouldn't be dropping tables all over the place because that's got data in it, right? And data is worth lots of money. We're only doing this as a very, very basic introduction to this thing. We can drop these tables now, but it's not the type of thing that you would do all the time because of the fact that you'd lose all that data. We're doing it now, though, just to get started. Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? I hope that's good. Let's have a look at the next question. List all the rows and columns for the complete orders table. Again, this one is not too hard, but what you do need to do is you do need to look at your tables and find the orders table, because all of this is probably going to be the orders table. It does say all the stuff in the orders table. Well, there's the orders table. Well, actually, I don't even have to look at the orders table to know this one. It says all the rows and all the columns. That's just going to be a select star. So let's go and try it. Select star. What select star does, that means all the rows and all the columns with, oh, well, there's a where statement, the clause that we can add to it, which will reduce the number of rows. But when we just say select star from orders, what that means is that gives us all of the columns. Take all of the columns from the orders. If we wanted to narrow down the number of rows, we could put a where clause on the end, which would narrow down the number of rows. But we don't want to because we want all the rows. So we're just going to run that. And that gives us all of the stuff. So then again, if you were doing this for me, you could just say, okay, well, now I'll take a new snip of that to prove that I did it. There it is. I put that in my Word document, which I think is this one. And there would be, and I'd save that. And yeah, and then I would take my code, which is not really much, is it? Copy that, put it in my new document here. Now with this, I have to put the comments in because I could run this, you know what I mean? And so to make sure that I can run it, I have to not have any commands in there that would cause an error. So like just Q2 would cause an error. So I turn it into a comment. So there's our Q2. Go ahead now, let's go look at the next one. The names and customers with credit limits. Oh, so now we're going to limit the number of rows. Before we've limited the numbers of columns. This one limits the columns and the rows because all it wants is the name. Okay, all it wants is the name of the customers with a credit limit of 10,000 or more. Well, we would have to look at our tables to see if all that data is in the customer table. Hopefully it is. Okay, so the customer table, what's it got? It's got the customer number, name. Yes, it's got a customer name and it's got a credit limit. So all the data that we need is in the one table. It's in the customer table. Customer name and credit limit. So we're going to go ahead and just write that command now. So let's just do it. So select, because it's a query. What do we want? We want customer name. So when I start typing customer, I can see all the things that start with customer. When I want is customer name, I just click on it and choose it. I think it wanted the credit limit as well, didn't it? All it wants is the names. You know what? I'm going to put the credit limit in as a verification because I like verifying. So we'll be able to see, because it's got their name and their credit limit, we'll be able to see if the query worked. So the first part of the select statement, we say what columns do we want? We want the customer number and the credit limit. Then we have to say what table we're going to get our data from. We're going to get our data from the customer table. Then we have to limit the rows. And how we limit the rows is we use a where clause. And so the where clause is going to put a condition so that we only get the ones that we want. Well, what do we want? We want where the credit limit is bigger than, is it bigger than or bigger than equal to? I think it might be bigger than equal to 10,000. And that's our query. Let's just check. Yes, it's bigger than or equal to 10,000. So we can run that. And here's all the ones that we can test. So you see why I put the credit limit in there as well, because that verifies. We see these guys got 10,000, this guy's got 15,000. That seems like it's working. So I'm just going to snip that. I'll put that into a Word document. This one. So this is question 3. And there's our answer, question 3. And I will take the code from the SQL, take that code. And I'll put it, some of you guys are using 2 screens. That's a better idea than what I'm doing, obviously. So I just, yeah, I'm working off my laptop, so. Yeah, so maybe some of you guys are new to the college and you maybe went past some of the labs and see how that didn't work out. That was so bad. All right, so what happened is I copied to the wrong place and that didn't work out quite how I wanted. So anyway, so there it is. And we see it's working. Go ahead and do question 4. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of these. I hope so. But yeah, so list the order number for each order placed by customer number. Okay, so now we've got a customer number. So that's going to be a where clause. We got 2 things in a where clause. So this is a where clause which has multiple requirements, right? And so we join those with an and clause. We do a where and an and. Okay, so all we need is the order number and the customer number. Yeah, so okay, so we just need to check. I mean, I think all of that might be in the order table. So again, before I do the query, always go back and check the table and see what we got, right? So if we look at our customer table, well, you know, I could just, oh, sorry. Too many things going on here. If I could just check it here, couldn't I? I could just go to the customer table and look at and see what I got there, right? All right, well, it's not the customer table I think I want. I think it's the orders table. So they were asking, they want the order number and the customer number. There it is. And, oh, well, it's all the 3 tapes. So we want the order number and the customer number from the order tables, and we want the order date. All of that comes from the order table. So that's good. We don't have to join any tables, because you'll see later that when we start joining tables, that gets a little bit trickier. So I can see that all of this is going to come from the one table. So we want the order number, and hope that's from the right one. Oh, it doesn't matter. Because yeah, so it's from the orders table. We've got 10 minutes. Order number, we want the customer number, and we want, that's all, right? From the,
Sir,
yeah, no,
how I know which table he wants?
you have to look at the tables. You have to look at the question. So I've been trying to show you that as I go, right? You have to look at the question. You have to look at the data that's required in the question, and then you have to look at your tables. Now, yeah, you do have to spend some time looking at the tables and understanding what's in the tables, or you won't be able to do this. And so, for example, in this question, how do I know? Well, I'd have to know. This is about an order. It's obviously about an order. So the first place that I'll start looking is in the orders table. It's also about a customer. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, maybe I'll have to look in the customer table also, but maybe not. What I'll do is I'm going to start looking in the orders table to see if I can find all the data that I want. Well, what data do I want? I want the order number. I want the customer number. Well, all it asks for is the order number, but I think I'll put the customer number in there too as a verification, and I'll put the date as well. So let's go ahead and get those. That's how I do it. I mean, I look at the data, and then I look at my tables and see if from that I can see which table I need to get the data from. So we're going to get the order number, the customer number. We're also going to get the date. So be careful with the date. It might have a strange name to it. It's all coming from the orders table. There's no other table, but we do have some conditions, right? So where the customer number is equal to, and you have to put this in because customer number is not a number. It's a text. I mean, though it says it's a number, it's not. And so this one is a compound condition. So where customer number is equal to that, and where order date is. And so again, you're going to have to be very careful with this one to get the date in the right format. So if you look at your table, now we put in the orders table, because there's more than one way of doing dates. I don't know if that's kind of a weird date, right? So it says 210-1023. It's probably not going to work because it's probably in a different date format, but we shall find out. We shall find out. I mean, this date one always pulls us up. So the order date says here is, what's that? There's an old dates, right? 210-1023. Let's see if we can do that. 2010-10-23. That's the date that they want. And that's what they say they want. So I assume that's the date they want. Wrong. Okay, and so then I'll see if that'll work. I mean, to be honest, I won't be surprised if this won't work. And if it doesn't work, it'll be probably because of the date. And I didn't put an equal in here, so it certainly won't work. All right, so customer number equal, date equal, run. Works. All right, so this one actually, the date is giving us the full date with the time included, right? So I think we can do something to sort of fix that, but it's okay at the moment. So that's what we've done there. What's cool about this one is we've got two conditions that limit the rows. So we only have two rows where the customer number is 608 and the date was that. Yeah, so isn't that interesting? So we can do something with the presentation of the date, but I'm not going to show you that now. We'll look at that a bit later. Let's now add that to our stack of questions that we've answered. Put that in our thing. So that was question 4. And again, get that from here. Get my question 4 so I don't have to ever type it again. Put that in my, I think I've got it in this one, right? So there's my, I don't know if we're going to finish today because we're going to run out of time, right? Unless you want me to continue on in another break, another after the break, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. That's that one. And didn't work because I got a space. Yeah. Don't put a space after the star. Okay, and away we go. So number 5, list the number and name of each customer represented by sales rep 35 or sales rep 65. So again, this is an answering to Mona's question, how do I know where to find the data? Well, it's talking about each customer. So the hint is in the each customer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look in the customer table and see if there's anything there about sales rep, because I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of stuff in there about the customer. So I'll look in the customer table, and this time I'm just going to do it here in the database. Oh my gosh, SQL, don't spit me out, SQL. Oh, what was that? I mean, oh, my SQL. I don't know what this hub Docker thing is all about. To be honest, I'm seeing stuff that I've never seen before. I don't know what that's all about. Oh, well, that's because I'm in the wrong. Yeah, sorry about that. So I'm going to check in the customer table and see what's there. So it asked us to see from the customers, they wanted their, what is it? The number name of each customer that has a sales rep. All right, so we need the number name. So there's the number and there's the name. And does it have anything? Yeah, it's got the rep number, which is the sales rep. So all of the data is found in the customer table. So I don't need to join any tables. So away I go. So we're going to do select. What do they want? They want the customer name and the customer number. Customer number, customer name. All I had to do is start typing CU, and then I get the hint about the customer, right? So the other thing, I am going to put the sales rep in there just as a verification. The sales rep or rep sales.
You forget to put name of folder.
Name of who?
Folder.
Folder?
Yes. And there you should write select customer, then write customer name, right?
You say the name of the fields, and then we say from what field, from what table here. Yeah. So, but I have to also do the sales rep. I'm sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place. Where is it? It's here, right? Rep number. Yeah. So that's how we do it. But then we have to add the condition where the rep number is equal to 35, or rep number is equal. So this one, we had an and before, we're using an or this time, 65, because we want to, it's not going to be possible, not likely, I was going to say not possible, probably not likely that one customer or any customer has two sales reps. The way this business works is a sales rep has a lot of customers, but each customer has one sales rep. So we couldn't put an and in here, because that would require that the same customer, that whatever customer we got as a result of this would have to have those two sales reps. So we put an or in, which is what that's going to do is any customer that has a sales rep of 35 is going to be returned. Also, any customer that has a sales rep of 65 is going to be returned. And there we go. There's our answer. There's all the customers that have sales reps of 35 and 65. And so I'm going to add that to our answers. And so that's, where's my Word document? Sorry. So Question 5, I think we are on, right? Question 5. Question 5, or are we on question 6 already? Yeah, question 5. Q5. There. Okay, so are we okay? Question 6, because we got like 17 of these to do, right? This is the part number and part